Very Bad Wizards is a podcast with a philosopher, my dad, and a psychologist, Dave Pizarro, having an informal discussion about issues in science and ethics. Please note that the discussion contains bad words that I'm not allowed to say, and knowing my dad, some very inappropriate jokes.
You know, anything too hard in life is not worth doing. Remember that.
Okay.
Like snowboarding or martial arts, you know?
Yeah.
Pottery.
Right.
Or, math.
Right.
But my point is, Brennan, if you're not immediately good at something, why do it?
The great boss has spoken! Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain!
Who are you? Who are you? A very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Good man. They think deep thoughts, and with no more brains than you have.
Pay no attention to that man!
Anybody can have a brain.
You're a very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Just a very bad wizard.
Welcome to Very Bad Wizards. I'm Tamler Summers from the University of Houston. Dave, plugged in as you are to politics and DC culture, I'm sure by now you know that Trump has selected your boy, J.D. Vance, to be his vice president. But what you may not know is that J.D. Vance was a philosophy major at Ohio State. Are we one step closer to a society ruled by philosopher kings?
I had no idea. Obviously, yes. Like, obviously. I mean, doesn't mean there's not like 8 million steps to go.
After November, there really is just one.
There's just a one step.
Yeah. So in the second segment, speaking of philosopher kings, Plato's cave, Plato's theory of the forms as it's presented in the Republic, and it's the start of a new mini-series.
Yeah.
It'll be just things that we often reference without actually discussing and talking about and maybe explaining to readers who might be unfamiliar with these things.
Or in my case, the things that I referenced that I'm not familiar with. If our listeners have any ideas, if they've heard us say something over and over again, and we never explain it, like tell us. Some of you have told us that before, and that's, I think, the source of this idea.
It finally got through to us after all these years, you know. All right, what are we doing for the opening? This was your idea.
Yeah, so I thought maybe we're old enough, we're weathered enough in our careers that we have accumulated some wisdom about ourselves or about just the good. And I thought, I was curious about you, actually. If you could go and tell your younger self something about your professional life, what would you say? Like if you literally could grab yourself and just be like, don't do this or do this, do more of this. Like, what would it be?
Okay. So it was an interesting exercise for me.
Yeah. Why? Tell me why, because it was for me too.
I think I've been thinking about why. I think I'm like the kind of person who can be fairly neurotic about small things. Yeah. What restaurant we go to, what movie we decide to watch in our house, what hotel we're staying in if we're traveling, like should we have stayed in this other one? But when it comes to big things like this, I typically don't look back with regret upon my choices. Like there's nothing obvious to me where I'm like, oh, I should have done that. Obviously things could have gone better for me in a bunch of different ways. But if I'm going back, like this is asking me to like tell myself something that will change things. Like I just don't I'm fairly happy with where it ended up. And even the stuff that didn't go as well as I wanted, like I don't feel like that was because like there was something systematically or even at the moment bad. But I do have an answer to this question. It's just weirdly like if I could talk to myself like 8 years ago instead of like 20 years ago or 25 years ago. But I want to know why it was hard for you first.
Same reason. I mean, that's a good description of you, like neurotic about small things, but like actually weirdly chill about big things. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Like I have a little bit of the same. Like I'm so selectively neurotic, but I'm not about that. I feel the same way. I almost felt guilty, especially having been the one to suggest the idea, because Like just the other day I was talking to people and I was like, I'm like actually really happy with my career. And it felt wrong to say that. Like I felt like as academics or something, or just maybe as humans, we're just not allowed to say that nowadays.
Did
like
Mickey Inslet like have to leave Twitter because he said something like that?
Yeah, I think. But I'm sort of the same. I'm like, I actually don't. Like, of course, there are things that could have gone better. But when I think about how they could have gone better, we were literally just talking about a friend of ours who has an amazing career, but sort of just took a step back because he got tired of the grind. And when I look back,
happier because
he's happier. And when I look back, I'm like, yeah, I'm sure like I could have like way more publications, but I don't want them. Like I just don't.
Yeah, no, like you can be a lot more prestigious as a philosopher than I am, but I wouldn't do it differently. It's just what it is. I mean, like you could look at this as like major cope that we're not.
I know that's what it sounds.
But I actually like really don't feel that. It was never an ambition for me.
No,
you know?
and I think it's important that people know that you can be happy and not be like the top person in your field. Like the top people in our field are not happy.
And, and it doesn't make them. Yeah, I mean, like sometimes it's that drive that gets them to the top of the field.
Yeah.
But it almost never makes them happy. Either they're just driven and they like it, but it's the ones that are driven by that resentment typically.
There's a lot of people who seem like they're motivated because they're trying to prove something to themselves or to their dad or something, and
or to the field that just didn't take them seriously, like at some seminal time.
But there are people whose like idea of a good time is to like work. We're just not like that. At least not that kind of work.
No. Okay, so, but I do have an answer to this question. Like, I don't want this to just be like, no, we're perfect. Everything's great.
Yeah.
Like, thanks for listening. So after I published my book, which was hard, just getting that
the honor book.
The honor book.
Yeah.
And that also coincided with me getting promoted to full professor. So now I'm kind of done with promotions. I'm not getting like some named chair or anything like that. I'm not trying to move until this city forces me to. But what I got out of the habit of is writing as a kind of constant thing in my life, because I'd had this project and I had all these other projects, and then all of a sudden, like now I'm like getting a lot of invited stuff because I committed to it, but I'm out of the habit of really writing. And I would tell myself, don't let yourself get out of that habit, because it's very hard. Now that I'm trying to start a new project, it is very hard to get it back when you've lost it. And I'm like working on it, and it's like, it's tough going. That's something I would say is just keep writing, whatever it is, like a blog. Like I could have started a stupid Substack blog or something just to keep my ideas churning, keep my eye on research, keep myself engaged with other people, professionally, research-wise. And I kind of let myself slip that way. And that was like, I think, a mistake. But again, it was a mistake literally like 7 years ago. And I think it was a fairly serious mistake that it's going to cost me to try to rectify. But when it comes to some of the other stuff, I'm okay with it compared to that.
Right. Because you value it and you want to get it. It's not like riding a bike. You can't just hop.
It's not. It really isn't. That's right.
Yeah. Speaking of Substack, Paul Bloom, friend of the show, has a Substack now, so you should check it out. But he did it because he really wanted to keep sharp with writing. I mean, he enjoys it in a way that I don't enjoy it that much, and maybe you enjoy it in a way that I don't. But it's like a daily workout for him.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So mine is, if I could go back probably 20 years, actually. I wish, so that some context is that when I first got to Cornell, I split up. I had a young infant daughter at the time, was junior prof, trying to get tenure. It was tough. It was a tough time for me. And it was easy to live an isolated life. Like you go in, do your thing, do what you have to do, come back and do what you have to do at home. And I'd go to conferences and I'd give talks because I have to. But one of the things that I wish I had done is set aside regular time, scheduled time, to have social interaction with my colleagues. And so there are friends that I have in the department who now I make more of an effort to meet up with them regularly. Like within the past few years, I'd say like with the start of the pandemic, it became sort of nice to try to meet up with people more regularly. And I started like a regular Zoom call with a friend every week, or at least attempted every week. And that, it just like, I realized that feeds my soul in a way that it's so easy for me to just be like, if I have an afternoon off, like I just want to be alone and just chill. And I don't make the effort. But when I do, it's like therapy. It's like I come away feeling so much better about everything. Even if it's just a bitch session.
Totally. Which often they are.
Which often it is, yeah. And I didn't realize how important that would be for my happiness. I think just making that extra effort would have gone
and
long.
it's interesting. I feel the same way, and like I can also be a little more, I like to do things my own way and be places when I want to be them. And like I'm a big hoster, like I'll always have people over. But if it comes to like meeting people, like happy hours, we have like department happy hours sometimes. I'm always a little bit, and I think those things are so important to just do, and also don't make other people have to schedule it. Like you schedule it sometimes.
It could be draining for the people who are always trying to do it.
Yeah. We had this really good system when we had this younger professor that we had hired, who unfortunately we lost through just stupid internal U of H stuff. She was great. She was exactly doing, like, she got your message. And she was always like, let's get let's meet, have crawfish, have beers. Like, she didn't even drink, really, but she just liked to get everybody together. And, like, we were all into it, but, like, her doing that got us to actually do it, like, every couple weeks or every few weeks. Right. And now, like, it just dried up a little bit. So I agree with you.
Yeah, like those people are worth their weight in gold sometimes.
Yes.
So that's my only regret.
All right. But otherwise
it's been amazing.
I mean, obviously the podcast, like we would say, don't do that. Like it'll fuck up your whole life.
It is interesting, actually, over time, how central, like, to my professional identity this has become. Like, it used to be a peripheral thing. Like there was my research and then there was a side thing.
This fun little, like kind of punk thing that we did.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So definitely would say yes to Tamler earlier. That's my advice.
No, it's true. This has been encroaching into our lives since it started. All right. Let's come back to talk about the cave. And how to distinguish appearance from reality. Welcome back to Very Bad Wizards. This is, of course, the time where we like to take a moment and thank all of our supporters and listeners and people who get in touch with us in all the different ways you do. If you would like to email us verybadwizards@gmail.com. Tweet at us at Peas for David, at Tamler for me, at Very Bad Wizards for both of us. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. We post every time we have a new episode there. And you can join the subreddit community, where there's always some kind of conversation related to the show going on. One thing that would really help us is if you rated us on Spotify, rated us on Apple Podcasts. All of that helps other people find this podcast in a time where there. There are millions of them out there. If you would like to support us in more tangible ways, go to the support page on our website. The biggest way you can do that is by becoming a beloved Patreon supporter. At $1 and up per episode, so $2 a month, you get ad-free episodes. Well, I mean, they're all ad-free now, so that's not a huge perk. What is a big perk is 7 volumes of David's Beats, and another one on the way very soon, I'm told. At $2 and up per episode, $4 a month, you get all of our bonus episodes, including Overton Windows, which I do with Robert Wright, a bunch of bonus episodes on David Lynch-related stuff that I do with Jesse and Natalia. David has done a bunch of bonus episodes with Paul Bloom on Star Trek, also Barry Lamb on Star Trek. David and I have done a bunch of bonus episodes too. So there's a whole archive of bonus content, fun stuff, and of course, last but definitely not least, the ambulators. We are getting close to the end of season 3. We've been taking our time a little bit, but we'll get another episode up for you very shortly. And the last thing you get regularly is our monthly audio versions of our AUA episodes. $5 per episode, so $10 a month. You can vote on an episode topic. You also get our 5-part Brothers Karamazov series that we did and we love. And we're going to try to put up some more of those kinds of things soon. You get Dave's intro videos, a couple of videos that I did on Plato relevant for today. And finally, the highest tier, $10 per episode. You get to ask us a question every month, and we will answer it for you in video form and audio form for all of our bonus tier listeners. We really enjoy doing that. I think the last one went like well over 2 hours. So try to keep your questions to one question per month, and there's only room for so many Jeffrey Watermills. But thank you so much for all your generosity. It is literally what keeps this podcast going right now. Now that we have gone off of ads, the Patreon support is essentially what keeps the lights on and us being able to bring you all the stuff that we're bringing you. Oh, and last thing, actually, we are thinking about doing a live show somewhere. We've narrowed it down to a few different cities: Toronto, New York, somewhere in the LA area, somewhere in the Bay Area, San Francisco. And we put a little survey just to get a sense of how many of you might be interested in attending one of these live shows, and where, if you were going to attend, where would you like it to be? So please fill that out. I hope we can get that organized. Thank you so much. We really appreciate all of our listeners, all of our supporters. Let's get to the episode. All right, let's get into our main topic for today. This is Plato's Cave, the famous, maybe one of the most famous pieces of Western philosophy. Is there a more famous one than this?
I doubt it, right? Like, there are ideas maybe that have been sticky, but not like.
I think therefore I am.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
that's the one I was thinking.
Yeah, I agree. This is about as foundational as it gets, and we've certainly referred to it. We've referred to Plato's Cave. We've referred to like shadows on the wall that we take for real things, copies of copies, the forms, all of that we're going to get into in a little more depth today. I just want to give a brief bit of background about like where this section in the Republic occurs and what's come up to that point. So this is obviously written by Plato, and the Republic is his most famous text, almost certainly, that scholars place around the middle period of his writing. Now, as I've definitely talked about before, Plato only wrote dialogues, and he's never a character in his dialogues. So the characters in this dialogue early on are Thrasymachus and a bunch of other people trying to get a handle on what justice is. But after book 1, it narrows down to just Socrates and Adeimantus and Glaucon. And those two, fun fact, Plato's brothers in real life. So he has his brothers in here. They're the kind of yes men to Socrates if you want to be uncharitable in this. But this is definitely a more Socrates-driven, I'm running the show dialogue than a lot of them, where he actually does more engage and interact and try to drum up disagreements. Almost all of that happens early on in the Republic, and then the rest is Socrates presenting, and what he's presenting is a subject of great controversy ultimately. But here are just the basic facts of it, right? It starts out with this question, what is justice? And all sorts of, in the standard Plato dialogue way, all sorts of definitions are offered, and none of them seem suitable. But then a Callicles-like figure, as I'm sure you'll be familiar with Callicles from the Gorgias, which we've done an episode on with Agnes.
It's related
Calvert.
to Giannis? Is related?
Yeah, it's related to Giannis. Gorgias had a character named Callicles who seemed to kind of get the better of Socrates, or at least kind of go toe-to-toe with him in that dialogue, and with the same kind of argument that Thrasymachus in the Republic is putting forth, which is justice is bullshit, it's might makes right, like that's what matters, that justice is like the stronger get more. So really this is just a battle for political power, and this question about what is justice is stupid. Like everyone would be unjust if they could. So then the question then switches from what is justice to, is it better to be just than unjust for the person? Like, is it better to live a life that is just, or is it better to live a life that's unjust if you can get away with it? Book 2 has another famous metaphor or allegory, the ring of Gyges, where a person is turned invisible, and the point of that is if you were invisible, you would go in and take whatever shit you wanted because you couldn't get caught. And so, like, the thing that's stopping you from being immoral is just you're weak, and you don't want to get caught, and you don't want to be punished, and you want a good reputation, and you want a good marriage. So that's the challenge that Socrates then takes himself to respond to. I want to show that it's better to live a just, good life than it is to lead an unjust, bad life. It's better for you. It's not just better for the city, it's better for you. But then he goes back to the question, wait, hold on, we forgot to talk about what justice is. Here we are trying to decide whether it's good to be just or unjust, but we don't even know what justice is. So let's go back to that question. So then books 3 and 4 are trying to figure out like what justice is. And the way Socrates goes about doing this is he says, look, it's hard to figure out what justice in an individual person is, right? So let's look at what justice is in a city, because it's bigger. And so if we see how, like, what a just city is, we can just map that on to the individual. Very dubious inference there. And it's not clear how seriously Plato was taking that. It was like, okay, well, we got to build a perfectly good city. And since a perfectly good city is going to have 4 cardinal virtues, if we can just isolate the 3 other virtues, we'll get to justice. Right? And so he tries to do that. He builds from scratch this perfectly good city. And I won't go into the details because, you know, it's complicated. But basically, the definition of justice in this perfectly good city is everybody doing the thing that they're naturally suited to do. Right? Everyone doing their own work. And in particular, you know, not trying to rule the city if they're not suited to rule. If they don't know what's the best way to rule, they don't even try to. They're not jockeying for power if they're not suited to rule. He also thinks that, like, the shoemaker shouldn't be a blacksmith, but again, it's not clear to what extent, how seriously he takes that. But he clearly takes very seriously that people who are not suited to rule shouldn't rule. And, you know, that's something we could all think about at this time right now.
It's a good principle.
It's a good principle that maybe we should take more seriously. Okay, now they have this conception of justice, and now it just becomes about, like, what are the details of this city? And somehow, again, I won't go into the details, but it leads to a funky city with somewhat communitarian, like there's some feminism in here. So really? Women can be soldiers, they can even be rulers. They're probably not going to be like the best rulers, but they're going to be better than a lot of bad men rulers. So you take them in when they're suited for it. right? But then there's also like a eugenics system, like making sure that you have these three classes of people. So there are the rulers, there are the soldiers, and then there are the petty trades people, right? Like, so they have breeding to try, very Brave New World, if you've read that, to try to make sure that like everybody stays in their own lane. They have a noble lie that tries to keep everybody not thinking that they should be in a different class than they are. Again, it's not clear how seriously he's taking this. There's the sex lottery that is faked. It's rigged. So like
Really?
the idea, I swear to God, this is all in book 5.
I had no idea.
Yeah. So there's this sex lottery that the way he's going to breed them without people knowing they're bred is to have like this supposed sex lottery that everyone just uses to decide who to have sex with, who to breed with, but they rig it, you know?
It's like a social psychologist.
Yeah, exactly.
I was wondering how that worked. Is there like a glory hole? Like you just can't see who you're having sex with? Like,
No. You can see who you're having sex with. You
just believe that it was random assignment.
You just believe that it was random assignment. But the craziest thing, after all these things, women can be rulers and soldiers, and everybody lives together. Like women can be shared in common. Families, you're not allowed to be raised with your family. You don't even know who your family is. There's some numerology thing that stops you from sleeping with your sister by accident. But like, it's wild stuff. It's wild shit. The Republic.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But the craziest thing about this city is that philosophers are the ones that are suited to rule. They're going to be the only ones that can rule. And the way he introduces this is like, he's like, who's going to be the rulers and why would they be accepted? He's like, you're going to laugh, but I got to tell you, you want me to tell you, I'll tell you. It's philosophers, right?
I mean, I've always thought that Shawn Nichols would make for the best ruler of Ithaca, you know?
Yeah. No, he's just Shawn Nichols. Bit of a carpetbagger, but sure. In any case, now there's this question. And it's weird because, like, this was never supposed to be a real city, but now they're asking about, like, how realistic this city is. And Socrates even says, like, we were just talking about this in principle to try to isolate justice in the individual, which will be reason as the ruler of appetite and spirit, right? But he said, all right, but if we want to talk about it, I mean, I'm not going to like stop you from asking me about this. Here's why they can rule. One of the reasons is they don't want to rule.
Yeah, I like that.
They're like the only people who are just happy, like you would relate to this, happy doing their own work in their own world, running your little trolley cases, and you don't want to rule anybody. You don't want to like run anything, right? Like, and that's what philosophers are, which is precisely, again, this is very relevant to today's events, precisely what makes them good rulers, the fact that they don't want to do it. They practically have to be forced to do it. So just keep that in mind, because now Socrates has to answer an objection, and that objection is what's going to lead into our section that we read, right? And the objection is nobody's going to take this seriously, this idea that philosophers, like how can you even defend the idea that philosophers are suited to rule when the Athenians thought of philosophers pretty much like people think about philosophers today, at best useless, at worst sophists, you know, like corrupt manipulators using techniques like the sophists, right? And like debating skills to trick people. And then the other philosophers, more like Socrates, are just worthless and get on anybody's nerves and are good for nothing, right? So now we get, I think this is fundamentally what the Republic is about. So this part then is my interpretation. Like, it's not about justice fundamentally, certainly not a guide for creating a perfect utopia as Karl Popper thought. I completely disagree with the Popper reading that he was just a true totalitarian trying to become a ruler. I think what it is just a defense and an articulation of the value of philosophy, right? Like the defense of philosophy as a spiritual enterprise. We'll probably talk a lot about the kind of spiritual aspect of this section, right? But like, I think Socrates is, and Plato through Socrates here, is trying to illustrate philosophy as a kind of awakening, from dogmatic slumbers, from believing things just received, even though they're false, a way to cut through the illusions, cut through the bullshit, and see things as they truly are instead of just how they appear to be. And this is where we get into our section, why are philosophers suited to this and uniquely suited to achieve this. It is because only they are pursuing knowledge about the good itself, the form of the good. You need knowledge of the good, the actual form of the good, in order to identify truly good things and not be deceived by things that only appear to be good. Just how, we're not big classical music fans, and so we could probably get deceived and think that a piece of classical music was good because we don't understand what really makes a piece of classical music good, right? And so that's the thing that you need ultimately to defend against a kind of relativism where we have no idea what's good and what's bad. All we're working with is appearances. That's where we're headed unless we can have some group of people who are actually focused on the thing itself, the good. Only with that can you distinguish things that are actually good from things that just have the appearance of being good.
Right.
Yeah. And that leads us to, okay, but what is the good? And what are these forms? And what is the form of the good? And what the fuck are you talking about? And this section is an answer to that question.
Well, no, that actually was super helpful for me. And I'm sure for our listeners, because I have the most minimal of concepts of what was going on in the Republic. And that was just a question I had. What was the motivation for this? What is it? So I like your interpretation because it totally makes sense that this is the culmination. He's getting to this. He's getting to the look, there is a way of accessing the true things. And the way that you do that is the way that we as philosophers have discovered how to do it.
And we're going to talk about the methods and especially the role of dialectic when it comes to this.
Can I just tell you a couple of things that struck me as I was reading?
Yeah.
So one, this happens whenever I read any Plato, Plato. I am always struck by two things. One, what a surprisingly modern way of thinking is present in whatever 300 something BC.
Totally. Read book 8. I don't know if you read book 8, but book 8, which goes through these different kinds of systems. And then when it gets to democracy, it diagnoses all the ills and problems of a democracy so well.
Yeah. And it's just crazy. You're just wow, there was already as much progress being made there. Everything, it does feel like everything has been just refining ideas, not to downplay some big ideas, but that it's there in nascent form, in its modern form.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's true about the Greeks. I think it's true about, a lot of Eastern texts too.
Because we're humans. We're
Joseph Campbell and Jung, right? We all care about the same shit.
Yeah. But this method, I guess that what's striking, it shouldn't be striking because obviously Western philosophy built on this so clearly. So it shouldn't be surprising to me. At the same time, it reads like a comedy sometimes to me, the way they're just yes, absolutely, Socrates, you're right. This is yes, I will. I have organized things, as you say, now.
I can't possibly deny that. That is the most insane batshit thing you've ever heard.
It's like reading Sherlock Holmes a little bit, but even crazier. Where Sherlock Holmes, you're
if it didn't make sense, but everyone was oh, of course. Yeah. No, but I think that I've definitely had that criticism, but I actually think that does it well.
It's not even a criticism. It's just sort of a laughter at the form.
Yeah, I can't tell if this is a weakness of the Republic or, I'm a little bit in the bag for Plato, and I think it's intentional because other dialogues aren't like this. People put up a bit of a fight, right. Or they, and that happens less in the Republic.
This one, it's almost like he just didn't like Glaucon and he just wants to make him seem like he's simping for Socrates,
Well, both of them are his brothers. So, yeah, it could have been just a shot at, you'll believe anything, you stupid fuck. talks. You idiots. I'm Plato. But I do think, like, we have to remember it's a dialogue. It is not Plato just giving his... And a lot of the thing that motivated this, like Thrasymachus put up a good fight. And even Adamantius and Glaucon in the beginning of Book 2 present Thrasymachus' challenge in a really strong form. Anticipating a lot of Nietzsche stuff, like Thrasymachus and Callicles are like Nietzsche.
Thrasymachus is the one who says might equals right, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And also that, but the way they frame it and the way Callicles does in the Gorgias is like, it's the weak that praise morality because like they can't be immoral. They get their ass kicked. And so they're like, oh, the best thing is to be weak and humble and not hurt anybody. Of course they say that, you know, and like you see that already in Plato.
Okay, so can I ask a question that might require us to jump right into the allegory of the cave? Like I got throughout, you know, the claim that there is a world of forms like that we access through this dialectic, but I wasn't sure what the good was. Like, what is the notion of the good?
Right. There are three images that we're going to talk about, or metaphors. The first is the sun, which will be a part of the cave, too, as an analog for the good. So exactly what you just asked, right? Yeah. The second is the divided line, where he separates the visible world from the intelligible world and then subdivides each of those realms into two. And the good is what's powering all of that. And then, of course, the cave. So let's talk about the sun.
Yeah. I mean, like, honestly, this was the metaphor that gave me the most trouble. So he says, we say that there are many beautiful things and many good things, and so on for each kind. And in this way, we distinguish them in words. We do. And beauty itself and good itself and all the things that we thereby set down as many, reversing ourselves, we set down according to a single form of each, believing that there is but one, and calling it the being of each. That's true. And we say that the many beautiful things and the rest are visible but not intelligible, while the forms are intelligible but not visible.
So there are beautiful things and good things. Kirsten Dunst in Eternal Sunshine, and bad things. And then there is beauty itself and good itself. What does it even mean to call something beautiful? Like, what property do they have? What does it share in? What does it participate in? Similarly with things that are good, you know, like straw dogs. Okay, but what makes it good? Why are we not just talking about like personal tastes about like, do you like eggplant or broccoli or mashed potatoes? There has to be something there that allows us to call these things beautiful and these things good, and those are the forms of those
it's something
things.
that they share, a property that they all share.
It's their being somehow, right? So it's like positing that there's got to be this, like if we're going to be making these kind of true statements about these things, there's got to be something that makes that true or false. It separates appearance from reality.
Right. And so visible, like all these things are visible, like Kirsten Dunst, like a butterfly. Those are all visible, but not intelligible.
Vicodin is good. You can see the Vicodin.
Yeah, we see the Vicodin.
Medicine cabinet.
Right.
They haven't taken it now. They're probably not going to take it, right? You know,
we see the Vicodin, but we don't see that. The good isn't visible. The good of it is intelligible. That's the distinction.
Whatever makes it good, we don't know what it is. And we don't even know if it is good since we don't know what the good is. But whatever it is, if there is something, we can't see it. Yeah. So it's got to be in the intelligible realm, the like reason realm.
Right.
Here's where he gets into, okay, but like, let's stick with the visible. What is the thing that you need in order to see visible things? Sight.
Sight isn't the sun. Neither sight itself nor that in which it comes to be, namely the eye.
No, it certainly isn't.
But I think that it is the most sun-like of the senses.
Very much so.
And it receives from the sun the power it has, just like an influx from an overflowing treasury.
Certainly.
The sun is not sight, but isn't it the cause of sight itself and seen by it?
That's right.
Let's say then that this is what I call the offspring of the good, which the good begot as its analog. What the good itself is in the intelligible realm in relation to understanding and intelligible things, the sun is in the visible realm in relation to sight and visible things.
How? Explain a bit more. So I think what he's setting up here is like you have the sun isn't sight. Like sight is this capacity that we have. But sun allows us to see things, right?
Right. It says you have the thing that's going to be seen, you have the person seeing, but like those two aren't enough. Like sun is the thing that needs to happen.
Yeah, to connect us to the thing and allow us to see it.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that the sun does. But it doesn't just do that. It also nurtures the thing. So like if you're looking at a tree, not only is the sun enabling you to see the tree, which you wouldn't be able to see if it was pitch black out, but it's also like the thing that allowed the tree to grow. You need sunlight for a tree to grow. The idea is that the sun and the form of the good, by analogy, is both epistemologically necessary, but also metaphysically necessary, I guess is what I'm going to say. Like that tree wouldn't exist without the sun, and we wouldn't be able to see it if it wasn't for the sun.
Right. That's where I'm kind of lost though. Like what is the good doing? That's like what the sun is doing. So what are the two things that the good is doing?
Well, that's what we got to talk about. We're going to have an answer to that by the end of this discussion.
Okay.
Or like the next episode's discussion if this goes to part 2.
All right.
All right. So you want me to be Socrates for a second?
Sure.
Well, understand the soul in the same way as like your eyes, right? When it focuses on something illuminated by truth and what is, it understands, knows, and apparently possesses understanding. But when it focuses on what is mixed with obscurity, on what comes to be and passes away, it opines, changes its opinions this way and that, and seems bereft of understanding.
It does seem that way.
So here's the key passage. So what gives truth to things known and the power to know to the knower is the form of the good. And though it is the cause of knowledge and truth, it is also an object of knowledge. Keep that in mind. It's both the cause of knowledge and truth. It's like what enables us to have it and what enables the truth to be the truth. But it's also an object of knowledge. It's something that we can know. Also, both knowledge and truth are beautiful things, but the good is other and more beautiful than they. So the good is like on a other level than the forms, right?
Okay.
It is what allows the forms to be the forms, makes the forms the forms. Because what is an ideal table if there's no good to like say what is ideal and what is not? What is an ideal policy, right? Like what is an ideal podcast if there's no form of the good that gives us like standards to measure?
Okay.
That's what I think it is.
You know what I was missing is the normative part there.
Yeah.
Whereas the forms seemed to me to be like, okay, there is an ideal table that gives, every other thing is an instance of that ideal table. Ideal means ideal in a different sense too, like not just the idea that exists of the table, but the best table.
Yes, right.
Right.
And everything.
Right. And what it means, you can't have best things without some force of good that's creating the best things.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's how I read
good,
it anyway, right? Like,
yeah. That was really confusing me.
Yes.
So,
yeah. And in the visible world, we don't get the best table. We get copies of the best table. But the best table is something that only philosophers can see using dialectic. But like we just get to see copies of tables. And we don't know, if we're not philosophers, whether they're good tables or bad tables even. And this is going to be like important when it comes to justice, right? Because the form of justice is what was originally being debated. Like, what is justice? And what Socrates is saying is that all we're going to have is just opinions about justice if we don't know the form of justice. But the only way there can even be a form of justice, so we can tell us what is really just and unjust, is if there's a form of the good that both illuminates and nourishes the form of justice.
by the way, Glaucon responds, "This is an inconceivably beautiful thing that you're talking about."
Yes, because it provides both knowledge and truth and is superior to them in beauty. It really is. Like, this is God. The form of the good is like God.
Yeah.
Or very much like, I don't know, awake awareness in Buddhism. I definitely am not going to be able to not talk about the Buddhist parallels of this. It is a divine thing that they're talking about because it gives birth to like everything else,
Yeah.
both imperfect and perfect. So that's the first analogy. The second one, now that we have these two realms of the intelligible and the visible, he says, okay, so take a line and divide it between intelligible and visible, and also divide those two lines. And weirdly, he wants to divide them by the same ratios.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what work that was doing.
And I don't think anybody really knows. Like basically the idea is in the visible realm, we have things themselves that are visible, which are not things themselves, to be clear, like a lamp or a computer or my water bottle, right? And then you have images of those, reflections of those. Like this can be like a play about a water bottle or a painting of a water bottle or just a reflection of a water bottle. Or I think possibly even just me looking at this water bottle from my angle.
Yeah.
But in any case, there's a clear dividing line between portrayals of it in the visible world and the thing itself, right?
Like, ceci n'est pas une pipe.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
In the intelligible realm. Now, this is tricky, right? There's also, there's a divided line that is to the same ratio. In the first part of it, so this is like the mapped onto the reflections of things in the visible world, is mathematical knowledge. Essentially, mathematical truths modeled on the like Euclidean geometry where, okay, here are 4 axioms or 5 axioms. You can build a whole system of knowledge just from those 5 axioms. But what you can't do, or 4 axioms, whatever it is, but what you can't do is justify those axioms. Like you accept them as self-evident or true or just as accepted assumptions, but everything stands or falls on those axioms, right? That's the system. It's not visible. So here's where you get real triangles and real squares and real parallelograms and pyramids and all of that. Like these are the things themselves in geometrical formulas, but all of that comes from principles that you've just accepted as true without having knowledge that they're true, right?
Right.
So that's one side of the line. On the other side of the line are the propositions that you get from initially, from what I understand it, provisional hypotheses, but ultimately, and it's not clear how this is supposed to work, we got to talk about it. Somehow, if you take the Euclidean axioms, they become justified through this process. And so nothing at this point is being accepted on faith. Nothing is being accepted without having knowledge of it. And in that realm are the forms.
Like this distinction was confusing to me too. On just my read of it, is what he's saying, like when you do geometry, even though you are drawing a triangle or speaking of the triangle mathematically, it's still the intellect's version of the image.
Yes.
Like it's still just the reflection that the form of the triangle is leaving on our intellect.
Right.
Like in some way.
So here's what he says, right? He says, I think you know that students of geometry, calculation, and the like hypothesize the odd and the even, the various figures, the 3 kinds of angles, and other things akin to each of their investigations as if they knew them. They hypothesize them as if they knew them. They make these their hypotheses and don't think it necessary to give an account of them, either to themselves or to others, as if it were clear to everybody. Like, these truths we hold to be self-evident, right? And going from these first principles through the remaining steps, they arrive in full agreement. So it's like, okay, this kind of foundational thing where we just accept these 5 principles and everything that logically follows from that. That is like you said, reflections, images of real things in the visible world.
They make their claims for the sake of the square itself and the diagonal itself, not the diagonal they draw. And similarly with the others, these figures that they make and draw, of which shadows and reflections in water are images, they now in turn use as images in seeking to see those other themselves that one cannot see except by means of thought.
Yeah. This is the kind of thing that on the one hand I said is intelligible, and on the other is such that the soul is forced to use hypotheses in the investigation of it, not traveling up to a first principle since it cannot reach beyond its hypotheses, but using images, those very things of which images were made in the section below, and which by comparison to their images were thought to be clear and to be valued as such. So then he transitions to the other side, which is, then also understand that by the other subsection of the intelligible, I mean that which reason itself grasps by the power of dialectic. It does not consider these hypotheses as first principles, like in geometry, but truly as hypotheses, as stepping stones to take off from, enabling it to reach the unhypothetical first principle of everything. The good, right? Having grasped this principle, it reverses itself, keeping hold of what follows from it, and comes to a conclusion without making use of anything visible at all, but only the forms themselves, moving on from forms to forms and ending in forms. And then Glaucon says, I understand, if not yet adequately, which fair enough, right?
Right.
So that not adequately is what leads to the cave. It's like, okay, I'm going to try to explain it from you, right? Like I get you do get the difference between those two things, right? It's through this process of dialectic in that passage that I read of like using hypotheses as hypotheses, but still somehow traveling to the first principle that then goes back and justifies those initial hypotheses and gives rise to everything. That's what dialectic is, but what is dialectic? Right. So we'll keep that question in mind, because I think we'll get back to that.
A lot seems to rest on that method.
But it's not impossible to at least kind of conceive of how this might work.
Yeah. I mean, in some real way, that's what he's doing right now.
Yeah.
Like in a meta way, right?
So now we get to the cave, finally.
Right. Finally. The promised topic of our episode.
Should we read this and just talk about it as we go?
Yeah, sure. I think that's a good idea. I think it's worth it.
Right.
Yeah.
Next, I said, compare the effect of education and of the lack of it on our nature to an experience like this. It's very interesting, just to interject, that he immediately introduces education and I do think like a lot of the Republic is just about education. Right. And he says, this is us, and this is our education. Imagine human beings living in an underground cave-like dwelling with an entrance a long way up, which is both open to the light and as wide as the cave itself. They've been there since childhood, fixed in the same place, with their necks and legs fettered, able to only see in front of them because their bonds prevented them from turning their heads around. Light is provided by a fire burning far above them. Also behind them, but on higher ground, there is a path stretching between them and the fire. Imagine that along this path, a low wall has been built, like the screen in front of puppeteers, above which they show their puppets.
I'm imagining it. Can I just say here, it might help people to like just Google Plato's cave and see the visual representation of what he's describing, because he's describing it in a way that like I found a little confusing. Keep going.
Then also imagine there are people along the wall carrying all kinds of artifacts that project above it, statues of people and other animals made out of stone and wood and every material. And as you would expect, some of the carriers are talking and some are silent.
It's a strange image you're describing, and strange prisoners.
They're like us. Do you suppose, first of all, that these prisoners see anything of themselves and one another besides the shadows that the fire casts on the wall in front of them?
How could they, if they have to keep their heads motionless throughout life?
What about the things being carried along the wall? Isn't the same true of them?
Of course.
And if they could talk to one another, don't you think they'd suppose that the names they've used to apply to the things they see passing before them?
They'd have to. So here's the thing. If it's a puppet show, right? If our listeners haven't figured it out, right? There's a source of light. In between that source of light, there's like a little puppet show going on with the wall, and the prisoners are only facing the wall. So you're just doing like a little rabbit shape with your hand.
Yeah. Well, no, you have a little cardboard cutout of a rabbit.
Cardboard cutout.
Yeah.
I'm behind the wall, so like it's a paper cutout, but I'm giving a voice to them. So like my voice is bouncing off of the wall that you're facing as a prisoner, because I am now hearing the voice of the person bouncing off the wall, it's coming from the same place as the shadow is. So I think the shadows are talking.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. It's funny because you don't really see that. But of course, like they're enacting little dramas on there.
Yeah,
you know, usually you think of it as they're walking with a dog and, oh, that's a dog.
Exactly.
And they're walking
That's
as
right.
a tree. But there's actually dramas playing out in front of them. That's actually like an important detail, actually, not a little detail. He says, then the prisoners would in every way believe that the truth is nothing other than the shadows of these artifacts. So to be clear, like what they think is a real tree or a real dog or like a real rabbit or a real act of justice, you might imagine, that's going on because of the voices that are playing out. Not only isn't the actual tree or actual dog, it is a shadow of a cutout of a dog. Like it's a shadow of a cardboard cutout of a dog.
Right.
So this is, when I say copies of copies, this is one of the things I'm referring to. But as far as they're concerned, that's what a dog is. I see Trixie, I think Trixie is a dog, but actually she's like a reflection of already an artifact, like an artificial artifact of a dog.
So I say they must surely believe that.
Consider then what being released from their bonds and cured of their ignorance would be like. When one of them was freed and suddenly compelled to stand up, this is also kind of interesting. They're just freed and compelled to stand up, turn his head and look up towards the light at the top of the cave. He'd be pained and dazzled. This is important. He'd be pained and dazzled and unable to see things whose shadows he'd seen before. Because now all of a sudden you're looking up at the fire. You're even seeing a little diffused light from the entrance. And now all of a sudden, if you go back, you don't even see the shadows well anymore. Your eyes are a little blinded, right? What do you think he'd say if we told him that what he'd seen before was inconsequential, but that now, because he is a bit closer to the things and is turned towards things that are more, he sees more correctly? Or to put it another way, if we pointed to each of the things passing by, asked him what each of them is, and compelled him to answer, don't you think he'd be at a loss and that he'd believe that the things he saw earlier were truer than the things he was now being shown?
Much truer.
And if someone compelled him to look at the light itself, wouldn't his eyes hurt? And wouldn't he turn around and flee towards the things he's been able to see, believing that they're much clearer than the ones he's being shown?
He would.
So that's interesting. Do you want to pause there?
Yeah, because part of me doesn't catch that intuition. Like, part of me thinks that aside from the pain of seeing the light, he ought to think that those things are the truer things. Like,
but the impulse might be to go with the thing that you're comfortable with.
Absolutely. Like, I believe
What
that.
did you say in the opening, right? Like, I'm always just like want to withdraw into like my, like
my comfort
to your comfort zone, right? And so like all of a sudden, like, oh no, the thing that you thought was like a real dog that you thought you loved is not a real dog. It's not even close. Like, oh wait, I want to go back to my real. No, you got to keep going.
Put me back in the Matrix, buddy.
Yeah,
Put me back.
Exactly. So it's very clear that if somebody dragged him away from there by force up the rough, steep path and didn't let him go until he had dragged him into the sunlight, wouldn't he be pained and irritated at being treated that way? And when he came into the light with the sun filling his eyes, wouldn't he be unable to see a single one of the things now said to be true?
He would be unable to see them, at least at first.
I suppose then that he'd need time to get adjusted before he could see things in the world above. At first, he'd see shadows most easily, then images of men and other things in water, then the things themselves. Of these, he'd be able to study the things in the sky and the sky itself more easily at night. And looking at the stars and the moon, then finally, I suppose, he'd be able to see the sun. Not images of it in water or some alien place, but the sun itself, its own place, and be able to study it.
Necessarily so.
And at this point, he would infer and conclude that the sun provides the seasons and the years, governs everything in the visible world, and is in some way the cause of all the things he used to see.
It's clear that would be his next step.
So, like, this was something you raised earlier. What does he mean, and is in some way the cause of all the things he used to see?
Right. What trips me up is that it's like not a mixed metaphor, but like it's a metaphor being used for multiple things. I don't know coming out of the cave and to the sun, you tell me. I mean, I get that like that layer of the metaphor, I get the sun is obviously the cause of all of the things.
That he used to see, though. So what I take that to mean is the sun isn't just the cause of the tree that he's now able to see now that his eyes are adjusted. It's not just the cause of the tree because it provides the light it needs to grow and it illuminates. It's also the cause of the artifact of the tree because these people, for reasons that are unclear, are trying to portray a tree to the prisoners
Right.
and do this little drama with them. But if there wasn't the tree in the first place, you couldn't even have the artifact of the tree and you couldn't even have the shadow of the tree. So all the stuff, even the fake stuff, even the appearance of stuff is ultimately being caused by the sun.
Right. So that's the part I never think of because I think of the cave being this self-contained thing where there are shadows being cast on the wall and the shadows of the things aren't the things. But this is a 3-layered metaphor. The shadows aren't the things casting the shadows. The things casting the shadows aren't the true things.
No, right. It's like the real water bottle and not just an image of it or maybe my perspective of it.
There's the drawing of the pipe, there's the pipe, and then there's the form of the pipe.
Yes, exactly. And what we see, what's interesting is if we're the prisoners, then it's like all we see are the reflections of things in the visible world. So how do you interpret that? I interpret that as I only see things from a certain perspective. So I don't even see like whatever the visible tree is. I don't even see that. I see my perspective of the visible tree.
Right.
Which is in some ways the same as seeing a painting of the tree. And so I take it like that, but I think people have lots of interpretation. But what do you make of the fact that this person is dragged up here?
That's the part where either I could go with this as a metaphor for something that's being done. Like I take it that what he's talking about is the process of education, the sort of gnashing of teeth that is required to get yourself to the point where you can even start to understand things as they truly are. And that's like something that is not only just not done in our everyday life, it's not necessary to live like a certain kind of life, and it's uncomfortable to do it. And it takes a lot of effort and, in some cases, suffering to get to that point, right? And Socrates maybe is the guy doing the dragging. He's trying to drag everybody.
Yeah. The only issue with that is I think the Socratic method works by like precisely not getting people to do this by force. You have to engage them and willingly. Everyone has to be doing this process of dialectic, which we'll talk about, that kind of winnowing down your false beliefs to try to find like the true thing. That has to be done, as I understand it, by people who are willing participants. Now, sometimes in Plato's dialogues, people aren't willing participants. Like if the Callicles just stops being willing to engage in the Gorgias, but then the process doesn't work and he fritzes out. Like it needs willing participants. So this idea of dragging by force is a little strange to me.
But I just read it as a metaphor. Like I'd never read it as this is literal force being applied any more than that these are like literal puppet shows, but rather that it's a difficult and uncomfortable route to get to this stage, and that you're being brought along in a way that can make you very uncomfortable. Not that the teacher has to force people to do it.
Yeah, so that's a good bridge to this. He says education isn't what some people declare it to be, putting knowledge into souls that lack it, like putting sight into blind eyes, but that the power to learn is in everybody's soul, and the instrument with which each learns is like the eye that cannot be turned around from darkness to light without turning the whole body. This instrument cannot be turned around from that which is coming into being without turning the whole soul until it is able to study that which is and the brightest thing. Then education is the craft concerned with doing this very thing, this turning around, and with how the soul can most easily and effectively be made to do it. It isn't the craft of putting sight into the soul. Education takes for granted that the sight is there, but that it isn't turned the right way or looking where it ought to look, and it tries to redirect it appropriately.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really interesting, kind of beautiful way of talking about what education is. It isn't just I tell you stuff that is true and you believe it. I orient you and you discover the truth through this process of ascending. and we'll talk about the mystical elements of this, but like you do it, I just orient you. Very much like like a guru guide, that is allowing the person using pointers to arrive at some kind of true discovery. But like you said, it's going to be hard for them and it's going to be uncomfortable. And it's going to require discipline and it's going to require your whole soul. You can't do it half-assed.
Yeah. And I think like just removing the mystical and just sticking to like pedagogy, like what is education? Yeah. It is a terrible and misguided view of what good education means. And I think, unfortunately, one that people still have, that it is just about transferring knowledge.
Yeah.
Because like, I think that's when people think that they can do a lot of this without sort of being guided.
Yeah.
If you think of this stripped down view of what education is just a teacher putting knowledge into your head, then you're like, well, knowledge is available to me.
Right.
So like, I don't like, let me skip the middleman.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's right. Because he really did believe that was his job. He was the educator. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like that's why he wrote dialogues. He thought, if I can't talk to people, which is the ultimate way of turning them around, I can at least write dialogues and let them come to their own conclusions rather than just tell them what to think. And the dialogue form is precisely for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like surprisingly a humble move to not make yourself the center of the dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah. So then sticking with pedagogy, I do think teaching is that. It's literally teaching people how to learn themselves.
I mean, we've all had that feeling. Like it really does feel like it is a beautiful way of describing it, like trying to turn someone's head.
Yeah.
Turn someone's head who's been immobile for like most of their lives, right? Like there's like atrophied and you're trying to turn their head. And I think we've all had the experience of having students who just don't respond in the right way, and the frustration of like, I'm trying my best to give you the tools to like orient you and it's not working.
Yeah. I mean, definitely sometimes they're just not interested, or they don't want to like question the things that you want them to question. And that way, I guess like the prisoners, not to be elitist about this, because we have our own shadows that we take to be the truth for sure. But
of course,
there are some points where they're not interested. And this is actually important, I think, to this image, because once the guy is out in the forms, and he's not only looked at the images, like geometry. Geometry is like the reflections of trees in the water, and the reflection of the sun in the water. But then their eyes get adjusted, and it becomes like, oh my God, this is it. This is a transformative, maybe transcendental experience. And then when they can look at the sun and understand the sun and understand like how all of this works, it's incredible. And if it were up to them, they would stay out there and just learn more about the actual world and not the shadows of cardboard cutouts that they've thought was the world before. But they are made to go down there. And when they go down there, a couple of things are kind of interesting. Number one, just as it took their eyes a while to adjust being outside, it takes their eyes a while to adjust being down in there. And so now they can't even see the shadows as well as the other prisoners. Like now they're trying to explain to these, no, that's not a real tree. And they were like, that's not a tree, that's a bush, or, that's a piece of cauliflower. And like, what are you talking about? And they're making fun of him and they're angry and they don't want to be like preached to or talked to. And they're made fun of and ridiculed and mocked, right? Like that's what Socrates was. And I don't know, it's kind of a perfect metaphor for that. It's like Socrates is like, no. Yes, I get it. You think I'm ugly and clumsy and dirty and I don't do the normal things because I don't understand your world. Like here you are like talking about like, is this just? Is that just? Like you don't know what you're talking about. And I'm trying to show you, but they think they do. And that's the thing. They think they know. They think those things are real. And here's this other person who seems like completely poorly suited to even identify the things that they can identify, and they're trying to tell them like what's behind all of it. Like, no, that's crazy. Like eventually you'll get sick of it and put him to death, and that's what happened.
Spoiler. Hey, do you want to make this a two-parter?
What do you think? Do we have a whole nother episode left, or do you think we cut it off
I think
early?
we do, given like
Yeah, we could
I think
cut
we
up.
might. Like, I don't feel like we're scratching the surface.
Yeah,
of
like
this
there's
yet.
so much we haven't talked about the mystical.
Yeah.
I have a whole thing of okay.
Like I honestly want to talk about like this theory. Like I do want to tie it back to his nativism and be like, right, what is going on? Like the soul is recognizing these things because
It's
soul
already
can.
there.
It's already there.
Yeah.
And like, what does it mean to be already there? Because it's not really talked about in this metaphor.
No, it's might be arguably assumed because of like the way the soul is constituted. If it's even here, right? If the soul is oriented the right
That's
way.
why, like, I love that. Like, the education isn't what some people declare it to be. It's not putting knowledge into souls. And I read it as it's because he thinks that souls already have it. So like they'll recognize the forms once we put them to once we get them to look at it. Yeah.
Which, and this is something we can talk about next episode, is I think reflected in most mystical traditions. This idea that something is already here that you just can't see, and it's good.
Yeah.
And
like there is so much, like there's like Neoplatonism that borrowed whatever version of this sort of like and turned it into something that influenced early Christianity and Gnosticism, and like a view that maybe it's a demiurge that created this version of the world, and like we need to just turn away from that. And
so there's a lot for us to get. I agree. That's actually a great idea.
Okay,
Let's we went into the real weeds in this episode.
Yeah, which was good because like this is a text that like that's what it's for. Yeah. Like I don't know. Like it's
perfect. I love it.
Like cool. Awesome.
All right. So all right. Well, hopefully you're enjoying this. Let us know if you are or you aren't, because we might do more of these kinds of episodes. How did you like it?
I feel like I'm in class with Tamler Summers. So I like it.
I know. I feel like I've been too much of a teacher, more than
No, but it's good. Like, you know, we've had these, we've done a few of these style things where like I'm talking a lot or you're talking a lot, and one of us always feels some sort of way. Like, but I actually am like digging it. Like,
this text is amazing. Like, this isn't.
You've turned my head toward the light.
I'm trying. I've been trying forever. You know, at the end of it, straw dog.
I thought you were going to say hemlock. I was like, that's cruel. Straw dogs and hemlock. I think that's a good pairing.
All right. Well, we'll be back to wrap it up and give the definitive interpretation of the allegory of the cave and the divided line and the sun and all of that. Join us next time on Very Bad Wizards.
The Maiden Boss has spoken. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
Who are you? Who are you? A very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Good man. They think deep thoughts, and with no more brains than you have.
Pay no attention to that man.
Anybody can have a brain.
You're a very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Just a very bad wizard.